Hi guys, and welcome to Tech Talks with Rachel. Today is another special one for me. I'm actually bringing on someone who was my line manager. He's got almost 3 decades of experience in software development, and he's got so much to teach us, so much wisdom, so much knowledge. And he's just an amazing guy. So welcome, Chris, to my podcast.
Thank you very much.
So who's Chris? Let's get to know you a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So Chris O'Connor. I live in Manchester. So I live with my wife in a place called Didsbury. I've been over here for about 25 years. So I moved over to Manchester actually for a tech job. I was originally a Java developer, and that's why I came over to Manchester. And I don't regret it one bit. I love it here. I love the nightlife. I love the tech scene here. I love the fact that we've got a good network of technical people in the area, which is great. I love where Manchester's positioned in the UK because we go up to the Lake District quite a lot. We go walking. I go drinking up there as well. So that's really cool. Obviously, you've got the airport here as well. I love going on holiday. I was talking about Ibiza earlier on. So yeah, it's a great place to be, and I absolutely love being here. So
where did you come from?
So I'm originally from near Doncaster.
Okay.
And when I came out of university of Sheffield, and I was doing computer science, and it was always something I knew I wanted to go into. So Sheffield was my local university, and this was kind of like late 90s. Java is the language that I was a developer in, and that was quite new at the time. The universities weren't teaching it, and Sheffield was one of the universities that decided to teach it, so that's good. But towards the end of the 90s, which is when I started to look for jobs, it was still kind of difficult to find developer jobs, Java jobs, which is strange to say now in Sheffield, Doncaster, that kind of area. But I could see that Manchester was thriving when it came to tech jobs. So that's why I moved over. I also fancied a bit of a change as well. You know, when you've been in the same place for 20-something years, you think, I want to do something different. You know, I was a young lad. I wanted to go and see the world. And it worked out really well.
Nice. Okay, that's really interesting. That Manchester was actually quite a tech hub from
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the company that I started at was, it was more of a consultancy in a way. So we didn't have our own software. We'd write software for other companies. So Nokia, for example, or Motorola,
Wow.
Sony Ericsson, all the mobile phone people, we would write software for them. So I've done stuff on mobile phones. I've written applications on mobile phones. This is pre-apps. Imagine that.
Wow.
Before we had apps, we had the applications just on the phone, and that was it. So we wrote those. I've written expense claim systems. Sounds a bit boring, but I wrote expense claim systems, police liaison systems. I did a lot of traveling as well, so which was great. When I was like 23, 24, I was jetting around all over the place: Singapore, Beijing, LA, God knows where, you know, but it was really a good time, and it was thriving early 2000s. There was a lot of money around as well. So Nokia, for example, tons of money, which is great.
Yeah.
It was really good. So the projects were great, and it was a really good time to start my career in tech. You know, obviously I started off as like I guess you call it a junior developer. We didn't call it a junior developer then, but a developer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just basically stayed at that company for about 8-9 years. Just kind of gradually built up my experience and managed to do lots of different projects.
I love that. One thing I've observed, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, one thing I've observed with software developers is they have a lot of desire to be in a tech role really early. So you start maybe looking at coding it quite early on.
Yeah.
Unlike other roles where people come from nothing.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I'd say so. I mean, the reason I got into being a developer, I was just talking to somebody earlier on about this, that it was something that was always interesting to me, even as a kid. So, like, I'm going to throw some old school kind of computers out there. So one of the things I used to do at home was I had a ZX Spectrum. Which,
I don't know what that
oh,
is.
you're laughing there, but do you know? But basically, ZX Spectrum was a very old, it's a kind of early 80s computer, and you used to have a little tape deck at the side of it, so like that's how you'd load games into it, things like that. And my dad actually, because my dad's an electrician, so he was always interested in tech and gadgets and all that kind of stuff. So I got introduced to computing and programming through using this ZX Spectrum. And again, you'll laugh at this as well, Rachel. So there was a time before the internet, all right?
What?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean? What were you doing?
Exactly. So we used to have magazines instead of...
Wow.
Yeah, imagine that.
Instead of like an EU magazine?
Imagine that. But no, that was the way that I started to learn how to program.
Right.
There was there's a thing called Input Magazine, which was basically a monthly or maybe even a weekly magazine that come get posted to your house, and it would tell you something about programming, because there's no other way other than
that baffles my brain.
Yeah.
It's like every single time you have to get this information, whereas now all the information in the whole world is literally on one device. Like,
but it was so exciting for me to get these magazines every week or whatever it was, and it said, this week we're going to teach you how to do a for loop or variables or whatever it might be. And then there'd be listings, like literally code listings in the magazine. It say, if you type this out into your computer, it will create a program. And I was like, this is good. And I'm talking like, maybe I was 7, 8, maybe 9 years old, something like that. And I was like, this is pretty cool. You know, cool as in, you know, you're producing something and you spend time and you start to think about what you're doing. I was like, I like this. This is kind of 1984, 85, something like that. And then you're showing your parents what you've done. You know what it's like. You know, you must have done something similar where you're building something, you're making something. I was doing it on the computer.
yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. And then at school, again, I'm going to say another computer that you've never heard of either. With BBC Micros, we had those in school.
Okay.
Again, an old school computer, but again, the concepts were very similar. Programming, loading games, no connection to the internet, but you know, and I was building up my passion, I guess, for development. I was building up my passion for computers. I also used to build computers as well. We never had laptops, we had desktop computers, and you could build them. So you'd buy the parts and you'd put memory into it, a motherboard, a hard drive, whatever it might be. And all this was building up to then time to go to university, and you think, well, what do I want to do? Computer science is ideal. So to answer your question, which is, it's something that you kind of build up to, and it's maybe something that you do at home or you've maybe done as a kid. Yeah, it is true that that's often what you do. But that shouldn't stop you. You don't need to go down that route. There's lots of different routes these days. But I think that passion still has to be there. It's not like you can switch it on and off.
It's hard to switch on and off, especially when it's something that takes so much focus, so much understanding as well, isn't it? Like, I think once you do have a spark for it, it usually doesn't die, right? You actually, you want to fix that code. You want to find the solution. You want to deep dive into that thing. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of those passions that once it's there, you can't deny it, basically.
Agree. Yeah. And as a developer and a tester as well, you do your job, absolutely. You know, you come in, you do whatever you need to do, and then you leave at the end of the day. But you will have done this, and I definitely did this, where you're thinking to yourself, even when you're going home, when you're making your lunch or you're making your dinner or whatever it might be, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday,
find that solution.
you think that's the solution. Yeah.
Like, that's why
Yeah.
that's feeling.
Yeah. And it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sticks with you in your mind. And
Yeah.
I think that's good, though, because it shows that you're passionate and you're interested and you want to do it.
Absolutely. I think when you're that invested into doing a good job,
Yeah.
like that's how you know like you're in the right
Yeah,
role for you.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your role actually? What do you do now? Now that you've been a software developer, you're no longer a software developer. What are you today?
Good question. What am I? So my current title is development director, and I've been director of engineering. I've been head of software. I've been all those management bits and pieces that are. I always define it as looking after the developers and looking after the QAs, and it's quite a loose way to describe it, but primarily that's what you're doing. What I do is I make sure I've got good people working for me, so the right tech skills, they've got the right capability, got the right attitude. So I'm recruiting for people. I'm structuring the team to deliver the software that the company wants to deliver. So, for example, if I'm working for a company called Advisor Plus at the moment, they're a HR business, and if Advisor Plus decide they want to do a website or they want to do some back-end processing, there's certain skills associated with that kind of product. And as development director, it's up to me to make sure that we deliver what it is that the business needs. And you do that by recruiting the right people, getting the squads together, getting the right balance of skills, making sure that we've got the right tools that we need to be able to use, and make sure that we're doing it in an efficient way. Make sure that we're planning correctly. So what capacity have we got in any particular month or in a particular year, and what size is the piece of work that we need to do. So I'm kind of coordinating all that. That's one side of my job. I guess the other side is being the face of engineering to the rest of the business. And you're often talking to people that are not necessarily techie people. That's okay. You're translating. I've spent a lot of my career translating technical stuff to non-technical people, and vice versa as well. Because as a technical person, often all you want to do is develop or test or whatever it is, and there's all this kind of noise of the business, and I'm often there as that go-between between the business and the tech people.
When did you know that you wanted to do something slightly different to coding away in the basement?
Yeah, in the basement. I was actually in the basement for my first job, surprisingly. Yeah, I was.
So you were the stereotypical software developer?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, headphones on, not speaking to anyone. Not coming out for daylight, that kind of I
vampire lifestyle.
Yeah. I did development for about 12 years, hands-on development, developing software, and it's a great job, enjoyed it. What I was finding that, especially when the new people were coming in, maybe the junior developers or slightly younger people that were coming into the business, my managers were directing me towards, could you help this person? Could you onboard this person? Could you line manage this person? And I was getting more and more into that, and I was kind of feeling I was getting more enjoyment out of the nurturing rather than necessarily hands-on. And I love the interaction with the techie people and talking and listening to them and trying to help them. And I just thought I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of this. And then, in my second job, a technical team leader job came up. So I actually had to apply for it. It wasn't something that I was just given. I had to apply for it. And I was a developer there at the time. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go for this. I'm going to give it a try. And I didn't get it. First time I went for it, I didn't actually get the job, which was okay because I learned something from it. I realised the kind of things that I maybe needed to develop in myself. So there was questions about how do you develop other people, and what would you do in a situation where maybe the person that you're line managing isn't performing. So it's all those kind of things got me thinking, well, okay, I've got to work on that. And then the second time the job came up, the technical team lead job, I got it.
Oh, nice.
And that's kind of where my management career started. So it was like a go-between. It was like a bit of development, a bit of management. And then the more I got through the technical team leading job, I found myself being less hands-on, more of the planning, coordinating, nurturing, helping other people. And then another job came up in the same company, which was delivery manager. So again, you're stepping away a little bit further away from that hands-on development.
Mm-hmm.
There was no dev at all, no hands-on.
Right.
It was all about planning. It was all about, as I mentioned earlier on, who have we got in the squad? What is the work that we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
What size is the work? How long is it going to take? What's the dependencies? I mean, you will remember when I joined MPP, good group of guys, really nice. We had a great time there. But do you remember I used to coordinate people and we'd get all in front of a whiteboard and we'd look at how everything So I got into that. And then the company I worked for actually got purchased by somebody else. So the dynamic changed slightly. But because I'd been there quite a long time, it was pretty obvious that I kind of knew what was going on. And again, my managers recognised that. Director engineering job came up. So I thought, let's have a go at this one.
Oh, I love that.
So I got it. And because we'd done such a good job in the Manchester office, and that's where we were based, the business saw how well I'd kind of managed the Manchester office. And then they said, well, why don't you do that for the rest of the engineering group? So we had an engineering group in Warrington as well. So I took over that. So I did the whole thing. It was great. Really good vibes, getting good people in. And I just loved it. I thought it was absolutely spot on.
Did you not? Okay, so since then, you've not been hands-on with software development.
No.
So do you not miss it?
So a little bit. It's funny you should say that. So I've just started a new job, actually. I started a job just last week. And I had a little bit of time in between finishing my last job and starting the new one. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go. Getting a bit kind of hands-on, just see if I can still do it, And downloaded VS Code, got an Azure license, got Expo on my phone, which is something for testing React Native apps. Do you know what? I managed to do it. So, I know.
Nice.
Mitchell's like, really?
Really?
Yeah. Can I test this?
Can I test this application? Let me see how well you built it.
But that's what I'd recommend for anyone that's interested in maybe getting started. There's tons of things. You don't have to do magazines anymore, but you can get on the internet. There's tons of tutorials out there where if you're interested in a particular technology, do one of these tutorials. And a lot of the times it'll be like a YouTube video or something online that you can follow, and there'll be links to go and download this, install that. And that's what I did. So I must admit, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed doing it, and I managed to write myself a little React Native app, a little React website as well. Got it deployed to Azure, which I was dead pleased about. I know, you're laughing. And got it working on my phone. I think what was interesting, though, obviously I'd not done that for a long time. What was interesting for me is, although the technology was slightly different, the language was slightly different to what I was used to, fundamentally, it wasn't different. The fundamentals were still there. You're writing code, you're deploying code, you're testing code. The test facilities are either an emulator or a browser or on your phone itself. Fundamentally, it's not really changed a lot, but the tools have got much better. So to answer your question, I kind of miss it a little bit, but I do like the people side, and I do like the coordination side, and I do like the business side as well.
Well, I just want to put in there that Chris was the best line manager in the world. You were very much people focused, and you weren't just about getting the job done. You were like team health as well, like mental health. Everybody happy? Is it a good enough environment for people to work? And the funny thing is with office, working is office politics. And I feel like you were really good at like being everyone's friend. I don't know how you did it, but you tried to like actually solve problems in a way without taking a side, but finding a middle ground to solve problems that make the workplace good for everyone to work there.
The thing I've always stuck to, that's very nice actually, the thing I've always stuck to is the best outcome of a team is the team that get on with each other and trust each other. So I work very hard on team dynamics, because honestly, the best teams are the ones that can rely on each other. And you know that if you go to this person, they're going to help you. They're going to support you. One of the things that I did at MPP that we worked together, and then when I became Director of Engineering at Aptitude, was nobody should be out of bounds when it comes to support. Absolutely no one. Again, I've worked in tech a long time, so I know that there's different characters in tech. There's people that are very skilled at what they do and have really good knowledge, but not necessarily the best at sharing information or being willing to share information. I think that's wrong. I think that everyone should be available to support, because we're all here trying to do what we're trying to do. We're all trying to get through our day, produce a really good piece of work, for example, and not everybody knows everything. So I set it as a value. Everyone is available for support. That included me. Nobody's out of bounds. And that's what I tried to do at MPP, and I think it worked well.
And you did it well.
Yeah.
And not only did you create a good environment for work, you also challenged people to develop themselves.
Yeah.
And I found myself developing myself so much more in that kind of environment. And also being celebrated. Like I was talking about the Culture Commander title. And it's like, you have certain things where it's even outside of the work day-to-day responsibilities. Like me and a colleague was setting up the Christmas tree one day, remember? And I brought in the speaker and I was playing Christmas music. And it's small things like that just build the office environment. I actually miss working in the office when I think about those days, like where I don't think after COVID, we've been able to get back to that feel.
It is a shame.
And it was actually at MPP that COVID happened.
It did, yeah.
I think that's why I miss it so much, because I've never been able to get back to that. Like that kind of family feel, if that makes sense.
Do you know what? I agree, actually. I agree. But it's that balance, isn't it? Because, if you are working with your colleagues and you're having a good time, fair enough, that's great. And I remember the Christmas tree. I do remember that. I also remember the coat hanger situation. We'll not go into that.
No, we won't go into
It included violence.
Oh my God. I'm not a violent person, then, so it was an accident.
But it's that balance of, you felt like you were coming into work and the people there you enjoyed working with. And I allowed that interaction. I wasn't somebody that was stopping you from interacting in that way, but that was good, because when I asked you could you just get this done for me, or could you stop late, is there any chance we'd be able to get this done, you were like, I will do it.
Absolutely, in a heartbeat.
I'll do it.
I think staying late to meet a deadline, or coming in a bit early, or ever putting in extra hours was not a problem in that environment, because you're feeling like, I don't feel like I'm being overworked, and I feel like I'm being celebrated. And when we met deadlines, 3D Secure.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Pizza Central, wasn't it? So,
we're Nando's.
Nando's. Yeah.
I still have that picture.
So, I forgot about that.
Yeah. We're at Nando's and all sorts, and we actually did team building things. And the Manchester office, we became so tight-knit, didn't we? So I think those are the kinds of things that we actually celebrated being successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You've not got to forget that, in my opinion. You know, you've got to remember that tech is difficult, it's tricky, and it can be quite pressured sometimes as well. You know, there's a lot of deadlines, there's a lot of people relying on stuff that you are doing.
Yeah.
And especially these days, you're being measured quite a lot as well. You know, that's something that maybe when I started out, it wasn't such a big thing. You know, so Jira, for example, is a workflow tracking tool. You know, that's a big thing these days, where obviously you have user stories on Jira, people are tracking what you're doing, and it can be quite a pressured environment to work in.
Story
pointing, estimation, refinement.
Why haven't you met this deadline?
Exactly. So I think if you can balance that with good vibes with the people that you're working with, even if it is online, you can still do it online.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we all went through COVID. It was a tricky situation. We actually dealt with it reasonably well, I thought, as a company, and actually as a nation, really. We actually coped with it reasonably well. I would say, so the advice I would give is, if you are fully remote, not in the office, then get your camera on, because it helps.
It changes everything.
Yeah, get your camera on, get to know your colleagues as well.
Go to the socials.
First question you asked me was like, who are you? What do you like doing? And just that question to people really helps in tech, I personally think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So with your role, I'm not going to ask about people coming into being a software development director. I don't think that's going to be possible. But how does someone who has worked in tech, so for example, like me, or maybe someone who's doing something else in tech, how do we become a management kind of role? How do we upskill into your role? How are you successful? What kind of things do we need to be successful? So
if you've got experience in the role as, say, a developer or a tester, and you've got X amount of years experience, there'll always be somebody that comes into your business that doesn't know the product, maybe doesn't know the technology, has some experience, but maybe not as much as you. And it comes back to that support thing that I was talking about earlier on. If you want to be the person that is looking after people like a director would do, you've got to put yourself out there as somebody that can support that person from a mentoring point of view or a buddying point of view. And people throw these terms out, oh, you know, I'm mentoring this person. That's great that you're there to help that person. But mentoring is you're structuring somebody else's career for them, or maybe they're onboarding for them. You're not just the person that's just, you know, come to me when you need some help. It's not about that. It's about, I know what good looks like. I know what you need to succeed in your job as a new person coming to this company, because I've been there, I've done it. And this is the structure that I followed, and this will help you as well. If you can get that in your mind when there's new people starting or whatever it might be, and put yourself forward as that mentor, and I will manage this myself. That's how I think you should start out. You shouldn't wait for the title as well. I've always said this, that if you want to progress your career, whether it's becoming a senior QA engineer or a director of engineering or a delivery manager, if that's what you fancy doing, do the job before you get the job. And I know it's a lot of people say, why should I put extra effort in? Well, if you do the job before the job comes up, when the job comes up, the answer will be really obvious.
People pick you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, Chris has already been doing this, so why not give it to Chris?
Why not choose him?
Yeah, we know he's capable of doing it.
It's so obvious, you know, and it takes work and effort and maybe a bit more effort than you're being paid to do at the moment. But that's okay, because it'll come eventually. I think resilience is quite, you know, something that you've got to have if you want to move through those roles. You've got to be strong in yourself, and you've got to understand what that role is and make sure that you're executing maybe some of the things that you think that role is doing, and make it clear to your own managers that you're doing that as well. One of the things I always say that is people will look out for maybe a person that they're line managing, and they'll see something in you, and they'll go, that person is really good when it comes to this part of the product, or bringing junior developers in. And good managers will give other people opportunities and say, could you please just help this person? And sometimes you might go to yourself, am I qualified to do this? You know, I've never done this before. Fair enough, I know the product, but this is quite a big step for me. But the reason, say, your managers ask you to do that is because they can see it in you, even though you might not have to see it in yourself. And when you're given those opportunities, you should just go for it. Because if you don't, then you've potentially missed out on a really good opportunity for you to demonstrate your own skills, so that when the role comes up eventually that you want, you know, it becomes an obvious choice. So yeah, that's what I'd do.
So you've given us a bit of context as to what you do.
Yep.
But what other kind of characteristics then could a person need or be required to have to be successful in your role?
Yeah. I think adaptability is number one for me. Obviously, I started out as a developer. I moved into a management position, and I started to think to myself, what kind of things do I do now that I would never have done as a developer? And as a developer, you're very kind of focused on what you're there to produce. You're there to produce a new feature or fix a bug or help the QAs or whatever it might be, and that's great. As you become kind of more senior and more of that kind of leadership and management, you've got to be able to context switch quite easily. And, you know, the amount of conversations I have with people just in one day is unbelievable. Wow. You know, the number of interactions that you have to be very quick at trying to pick up what is it that they want here, and how can I help them, or what is it that they're actually talking about. And to be fair, you don't often know the details. You have to be comfortable dealing with situations where you don't know the details. And I guess that's the big difference from being a hands-on developer, where you need to know the details, you need to get into the documentation on this particular piece of functionality, versus being a manager, where you don't necessarily have to get into the details, but you have to be very quick on what is it that this person is talking to me about. So you interact with tech people, you interact with business people, other leaders, and they've all got their own priorities and kind of what they want to do for that day, and they want to tell you all about it. And as long as you can listen and be adaptable, then I think that's what I'd recommend.
And you have to be a people person, right?
I think so.
Because imagine dealing with all these annoying people. Because people are annoying. I feel like you're very patient. So I feel like as a manager, you have to be very patient, because everybody wants their priority to be at the top of the priority. Yeah. So you have to be a people person to be able to explain to them that your priority is your top priority, but it's not our top priority as a business. And being able to manage that as well, I think is so important.
I think talking to people is massive. Do you know, I started at Advisor Plus last week, okay? And one of the things that a lot of people were saying to me is that it's quite refreshing to see a techie person that can talk, and that's what sets you apart. To be fair, that is what sets you apart. And I think it's really important, that interaction with people, that collaboration, and being open to collaboration. I mean, when I was a developer, we were laughing about being in a basement with your headphones on and not talking to anyone. And I was that person. It might surprise you, but I was that person.
You don't come across like that. I feel like you're so extroverted and so out there. And you're very much like in a social space, you know, Chris is there. Like
it takes work. Wow. So that's work. You know, that it might look natural. So somebody once said that to me. They said it's very organic. That's how they described it. But to be organic takes a lot of work, a lot of thought. You know. So I think that's what you need to be: collaborative, adaptable, people person, patient.
Okay, that's really helpful. I feel like with your skills, so you've been able to see the development side,
Yeah.
and now as a manager, you oversee the whole business in terms of a development point of
Yeah.
view, and you also work closely with the development team,
Yeah.
with the specifically developers and testers.
Yeah.
What would you say would be your advice
Yeah.
for someone who, I don't know, maybe is thinking about a career in tech?
Yeah.
What makes somebody successful in a tech career, whether that's development, whether that's testing, whether that's a product owner or business analyst, like as at an eagle view, what have you seen over the years that the person with these maybe traits or these kind of practices is successful?
Don't attack someone with a coat hanger. To start off.
Okay, don't be like Rachel.
no, I'm joking. Again, you've got to have a passion. You've got to have a passion for tech. Tech isn't necessarily something that just suddenly appears one day and then you can do it. You've got to have a passion for it first. It's a bit like what I was saying earlier on about providing support. Be open to providing support to other people. The best developers and testers that I've ever worked with are the people that are willing to help, because there's always changes in business. There's always new priorities. There's always changing priorities. There'll be a new customer feature that somebody wants doing that nobody expected to have to do on that particular month or on that particular quarter. The best techie people I've ever worked with are the people that are understanding when it comes to change. There's always change, there's always pivoting, there's always maybe something new that you weren't expecting. And kind of don't get hung up too much on, it can be frustrating sometimes that you may be working on something and then you have to switch. But you will come back to that, and it's not something that is suddenly just wiped out. Just remember that things change, and you've got to be able to deal with that. I guess the other thing is networking. So some of the best people that I've worked with are people that, that I love things like meetups, that know people and go to meetups and network, put themselves out there as an expert, for example. A lot of technical people think they're not experts, and they are. There's lots of knowledge that they have that they could provide the community. So I love tech people, devs and QAs that want to present. And I know it's not easy. I know that. It's not easy talking in public, but I'd say that's as important as the tech side. Obviously understanding the technology, but also being able to describe the technology to people is really handy.
That's really good advice. I would probably just echo the first point that you said, which is sometimes you have to drop things that you're working on and just pivot. I've had projects where I've worked on, like, literally, I even learned Scala, like, automation. That is so hard. I learned all this, and then they just dropped it. They said, oh, this project's gone now, like, scrapped. And I was like, this is like 6 months of my hard work. But you just have to be okay with the new business priorities and just be like, okay, that's fine. I'll have something else that I'll work on. And
from a personal point of view, you now understand what that means. You've learned it. And who knows, in 3 years' time, you might be using it again.
Absolutely. It's never a lost skill, isn't it?
It's okay.
Where is software development going in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see the future of software development?
I mentioned earlier on, and took you by surprise, that I have actually been doing some development myself. Stop laughing. It's not funny.
I want to see this application first. It's going to be
I'll show
rubbish.
it you afterwards.
I'm sorry.
It's going to be rubbish, probably is. One of the things that I was looking at was a thing called GitHub Copilot, which is AI-driven code generation. So I don't know if you've seen this, but it's basically something that can plug into your IDE, for example, VS Code, and you can use AI to actually ask for particular features and pieces of code, which I think is really cool. say you're working on a framework that you've never worked on before, you can use AI generated code to maybe give you some sample code, or I don't know, you're writing a particular application using a framework. The AI part will actually say, well, here's a function for you, and I'll write it for you. I think that's really cool. I think it's really good from a quality perspective as well. So you can get AI to kind of do a code review for you. So you remember all the time we spent on code reviews, and it was peer-to-peer, which is great. That's what you should be doing. But imagine if we had another level where the AI was doing the code review for you. That's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that is one thing. I think the no code as well, that's something else that interests me.
Okay.
I think that's particularly interesting for people getting into tech as well. What else? Yeah, I think the AI stuff, definitely.
AI is always in every conversation now.
Yeah.
I feel like we just have to adapt our life around the new technology that's coming around with AI.
The thing, I mean, the way I think about it is it's there to help us. So it's not there to replace us, it's there to help us. So even things like ChatGPT, it's good in that it inspires you, but there's still your own thoughts and your own ability that you've got to rely on. You can't just rely on the AI, in my opinion.
That's true.
My opinion is you use it as a tool to help you in your job or your day-to-day life.
It's just a bit like Google, right?
Yeah.
When it first came out.
Yeah.
Same way like you were waiting for the magazine.
Yeah.
Now
Exactly.
you can Google it.
Yeah.
And now AI can go a step further by saying, oh, why don't you use this?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing. And I think human nature is always fearful.
Yeah.
And we're always like, oh, we don't know what this is. So, you know, what we have to apply caution or something. But I think over time, once we integrate it into these applications and our day-to-day life, it'll probably not be as scary as...
Well, you know, I heard something a few weeks ago where when desktop PCs or PCs in the home start up, even just computers in general, started to become a thing, like in the 60s, there's a lot of fear that was going to take jobs as well. So there was that same idea that these things are going to come in and it's going to ruin, you know, certain industries, which in respect it did, but it actually enhanced our ability to do work.
Absolutely.
If you think about a computer now, it's just a tool. It's something that we're using to do our jobs. It's not replacing our jobs. And I guess AI in a way is just another tool.
And I think with the skills that AI maybe replaces in us, and it replaces those jobs, it creates new jobs.
Absolutely.
For every job that's replaced, it's probably going to create a new job. So we can't be that fearful of it.
I don't think so. We'll find something else to keep us busy.
Absolutely. And I think it's about adapting your skills to survive in the new world, survive in the new AI world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm pretty excited by it, to be honest.
So what's the best piece of advice that you've received in your career?
It goes back to, you know, when I mentioned earlier on about taking opportunities when they come up. That's the best advice I was ever given. Again, as a developer starting out, you just want to develop, or a tester, you just want to test. But sometimes there's opportunities that come up that are maybe a bit out of your comfort zone, like presenting, talking to an audience. And my advice was, if those opportunities come up, you should take them. Even if it doesn't work out or it doesn't lead to something, you never know, it might do. So when I worked for the company in Didsbury that I talked about, that worked for Nokia and Motorola and all those guys, I was on the Nokia project, and I was working directly with a project manager over in the States. And what my task was to do was to write some example applications for the Nokia mobile phone, but also document like a training course that was associated with those apps to teach people how to write these apps. So that was good. I liked that. And it was like writing games and, I don't know, accessing Bluetooth on the phone and stuff like that. It was interesting.
Nice.
But then this opportunity came up where they could see that I was quite good at talking. Can't shut me up half the time, but quite good at talking. And they said, do you want to basically teach this training how to write apps for the Nokia profile? Do you want to go to Singapore and do it? And I was like, well, that's pretty scary, because I didn't even know where Singapore was. I had no idea. I honestly didn't.
Wow.
23, I had no clue where it was. I'd heard of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to put it on a map.
Yeah.
I remember going and looking at a big atlas and going, oh, it's a long way away, isn't it? So I talked to my girlfriend, who was now my wife at the time, and said, what do you think? And she was like, go for it. Why not? Somebody wants you to send you, that far away to go and do something, just do it. And I took that opportunity when it came up, and it kind of transformed my career in a way.
Okay.
Because it took me from that guy in the basement with the headset on, not talking to anyone, to then realising, actually, I have got a skill that other people haven't got. And people want to kind of listen to people talk about this stuff, and I can talk about it. And then I got that more and more, where they were like, oh, you did it in Singapore, do you want to come to Johannesburg and do it? I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Wow. Yeah. And then they said, do you want to come and do it in Beijing? I was like, yeah, I'll do it in Beijing.
Wow.
So yeah, my advice would be exactly what I said there. There'll be opportunities that pop up that you think, this is out of my comfort zone. And it might be something as small as doing a presentation to the rest of the business on a particular piece of functionality that you know about. But take that opportunity and learn from it. You might learn that you don't want to do it again, which is fine. Or you might learn, actually, I'm very good at it and I want to progress down this route. But unless you take it, you'll never know.
That is a really good advice. Yeah. I think I've been able to take that approach with a couple of things, and I've discovered what I'm good at and what I'm not good at.
Yeah.
And the types of things that I've been able to risk was mostly technical training.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'd look at things and be like, because I'm really good with the soft skills.
Yeah.
But then I'd look at technical training and I'd be like, I'm not good at this, I can't do that. And then I'd be like, okay, instead of saying I can't do it, what if I just give it a try?
Just give it a try.
And then before you know it, you get better and better at these things. And then you're like, oh, I'm actually a lot more technical than I used to be. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, do you remember when we were looking at doing, I think, some automation testing? And the developers were writing integration tests. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And I started to talk to you and one of the other QAs about, maybe we could just start picking up little bits and pieces. Yes. And even if it's just a small part, it's a start.
Yes.
And then you start going, okay, I get this.
Yeah, the penny starts to drop when the developer walks you through a bit of code.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I get it.
Get it now, yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I can write some of these.
Do you know what? In tech, there's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of words and phrases.
Scary words.
It's not. Well, I'm kind of dismissing it away. There is some complex stuff out there. Don't get me wrong. It is complex. But a lot of the times, once you get behind what that word actually means or that acronym, it's not actually that difficult.
It's not that hard, and it's step-by-step understanding something by breaking it down and literally starting from nothing and then building up the bricks on
Absolutely.
that.
Techies love to bamboozle you because they know the stuff.
Yeah.
But if you hear somebody talking about a particular technology or an acronym and you think,
just ask.
Just ask them.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What is that?
Tell me what it is.
Yeah.
Or could you tell me where to go and do some research on that and go and read it for yourself? So then when it comes up next time, you're like, I know what that means.
Yeah. I think some feedback you gave me, actually, I still remember. You said, I'm not afraid to ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, if I don't know something, I would love to just kind of clarify, because then if I feel stupid in that moment by going, I don't know what that is, then at least when you've told me, I'll be less stupid tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing as well, actually. You've just reminded me of something. I remember, do you remember I brought in where we got a new piece of work and I could see that people were scared to ask questions and to put their hand up and say, I don't understand this. So I flipped it around a little bit and I said, right, okay, you've got to take away this information. Do you remember the
Yes.
requirements?
Yes.
And I said, I want one QA and I want
Yes.
one developer to
Chris,
present.
I used to hate that. I used to hate that so much.
Well,
I'm like, oh, I have to present this in front of all the smart people. And I was like, I'll let the other QA do it.
But the reason I did that is to break down that fear of other people not understanding. Because there's a lot of times that you go into meetings and you talk about new features that you just think, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's to break down that. So don't be scared to ask questions.
Is there anything else that we could cover?
Okay.
Is there anything else that we've not covered that you think is helpful for someone who's kind of like maybe wanting to get into your role from another tech role, another discipline, or anything in general that even you could give advice-wise?
Yeah. My advice would be do what I did a couple of weeks ago with my rubbish app that I developed.
Which I will test.
Try it. There's tons of stuff online. As I said, tutorials. You can install the apps, you can install the programs on your PC, and you can just give it a go. That'll then see if you feel passionate about it and you want to progress with it. There's loads of networking opportunities, especially in Manchester, probably Leeds, Liverpool, Chester, London, all those guys, and start looking at what those say meetups are. There's tons of places. One .NET North up in Manchester, which is really, really good to go and just listen to other people talking about tech. So again, go to things like that. There's a charity called Code Bar. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they do tutorials. They get people in that are not necessarily from a techie background and teach. So look into that.
Yeah.
If you're really, really passionate, there's a lot of apprentice type places springing up now. There's one called North Coders in Manchester. I've brought in apprentices, you remember, from MPP. So yeah, my advice would be try it, see if you like it, then start networking. That's how you get into tech. The younger you start, the better, in my opinion. But there's nothing stopping you doing it in later life. But I was talking to somebody earlier on and saying that I really want more girls and females in tech, and it's really difficult because unless you have a spark of interest in tech when you're really, really young, it's hard to get
that belief well that you can do it. Because even for me, I felt like you gave me a lot of encouragement to try things that I wouldn't normally try, and a lot of people on my journey did give me that encouragement. So not everybody does get that, and I think women we kind of think, oh, I can't do it, or I'm not like that, or, especially if you walk into a room. When I was interviewing, I'd walk into rooms full of men, and I'd be like, whoa, do I fit here? That kind of question. So I think it is a bit difficult in that sense.
It is hard. One thing I've always said to everybody that I've ever line managed is you're super lucky if you get anyone else that will manage your career for you, and you've got to manage your own career. It's great if you've got somebody that will help you, which is brilliant, but in terms of where you want to be and what
take
you want,
ownership.
You've got to take ownership yourself, because it's very rare anyone will do that for you. And that comes, like say, working out what you want to do, see if you've got a passion for it, start networking with people. And that also applies for somebody that's in tech that wants to move to management. So it might not be for you. It might not be something that you feel passionate about. Try it. If it doesn't work, don't do it. If it does work, carry on.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. We've had a great time having this conversation. I'm sure you guys have learned a lot from Chris. Thank you for joining Tech Talks with Rachel. We'll give you all the social handles for Chris. Where can we find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook, but you probably won't want to look at my Facebook, to be fair. No, LinkedIn is my primary place. Yeah.
So we'll give you guys LinkedIn social handle for Chris, and he's based in Manchester. So if you want to network with him, you'll probably find him at the networking meetups, because Chris is always at one of those, as am I. So yeah, thanks guys. I'll see you guys on the next one.